The Sacred Milk of Koumongoe. Far away, in a very hot country, there once lived a man and a woman who had two children, a son named Cohen, and a daughter named Thachne. Early in the morning and late in the evenings, the parents worked hard in the fields, resting when the sun was high under the shade of some trees. While they were absent, the little girl kept house alone, for her brother always got up before the dawn, when the air was fresh and cool, and drove out the cattle to the sweetest patches of grass he could find. One day, Kone had slept later than usual. His father and mother went to their work before him, and there was only Thachne to see him busy making the bread for supper. "Thachne," he said, "I'm thirsty. Give me a drink from the tree Koumongoe, which has the best milk in the world." "Oh, Kone," cried his sister, "you know that we're forbidden to touch that tree. What would father say when he came home? For he would know for sure." "Nonsense," replied Kane. "There is so much milk in Koumongoe that he will never miss a little. If you won't give it to me, I shan't take the cattle out. They will just have to stay in all day in the hut, and you know that they will starve." And he turned from her in a rage, and sat down in the corner. After a while, the Kane said to him, "It's getting hot. You had better drive out the cattle now." But Kwane only answered sulkily, "I told you I'm not going to drive them out at all. If I have to do without milk, they shall do without grass." The Kane did not know what to do. She was afraid to disobey her parents, who would most likely beat her. Yet the beasts would be sure to suffer if they were kept in, and she would perhaps be beaten for that too. At last she took an axe and a tiny earthen bowl. She cut a very small hole in the side of Koumongoe, and out gushed enough milk to fill the bowl. "Here's the milk you wanted," she said, going up to Kwane, who was still sulking in his corner. "What is the use of that?" grumbled Kwane. "Why, there's not enough to drown a fly. Go and get me 3 times as much." Trembling with fright, the Kane returned to the tree and struck it a sharp blow with the axe. In an instant there poured forth such a stream of milk that it ran like a river into the hut. "Kwane, Kwane," cried she, "come and help me to plug up the hole. There will be no milk left for father and mother." But Kwane could not stop it any more than Thachne, and soon the milk was flowing through the hut downhill towards their parents in the fields below. The man saw a white stream a long way off and guessed what had happened. "Wife, wife," he called loudly to the woman who was working at a little distance. "Do you see Koumongoe running fast down the hill? There is some mischief of the children's, I'm sure. I must go home and find out what is the matter." And they both threw down their hoes and hurried to the side of Koumongoe. Kneeling on the grass, the man and his wife made a cup of their hands and drank the milk from it. No sooner had they done this than Koumongoe flowed back again up the hill and entered the hut. "Thachne," said the parents severely, when they reached home, panting from the heat of the sun, "what have you been doing? Why did Koumongoe come to us in the fields instead of staying in the gardens?" "It's Kwane's fault," answered the Kane. "He would not take the cattle to feed until he drank some of the milk from Koumongoe. So, as I did not know what else to do, I gave it to him." The father listened to the Kane's words, but made no answer. Instead, he went outside and brought in 2 sheepskins, which he stained red and sent for a blacksmith to forge some iron rings. The rings were then passed over Kane's arms and legs and neck, and the skins fastened on her before and behind. When all was ready, the man sent for his servants and said, "I'm going to get rid of the Kane." "Get rid of your only daughter?" they answered in surprise. "But why?" "Because she has eaten what she ought not to have eaten. She has touched the sacred tree which belongs to her mother and me alone." And turning his back, he called to the Kane to follow him, and they went down the road which led to the dwelling of an ogre. While they were passing along some fields where the corn was ripening, and when a rabbit suddenly sprang out at their feet and was standing on his hind legs, it sang, "Why did you give your child to the ogre? You fair, so fair." "You had better ask her," replied the man. "She is old enough to give you an answer." Then, in turn, Kane sang, "I gave Mongotu to Kouote, Mongotu to the keeper of the beasts. Without Koumongoe they could not go to the meadows. Without Koumongoe they would starve in their hut. That is why I gave him the Koumongoe of my father." And when the rabbit heard that, he cried, "Wretched man, it is you whom the ogre should eat, and not your beautiful daughter." But the father paid no heed to what the rabbit said, and only walked on further, bidding Thakane to keep close behind him. By and by they met with a troop of great deer, called elands, and they stopped when they saw Thakane and sang, "Why do you give your ogre your child so fair, so fair?" "You had better ask her," replied the man. "She is old enough to give you an answer." Then, in her turn, the Kane sang, "I gave Koumongoe to Kouane, Koumongoe to the keeper of the beasts. For without Koumongoe they would not go to the meadow. Without Koumongoe they would starve in the hut. That is why I gave him the Koumongoe of my father." And the Ellens all cried, "Wretched man, it is you whom the ogre should eat, and not your beautiful daughter." By this time it was nearly dark, and the father said they would travel no further that night, and must go to sleep where they were. Thakane was indeed thankful when she heard this, for she was very tired, and found the two skins fastened around her almost too heavy to carry. So in spite of her dread of the ogre, she slept till dawn, when her father woke her and told her roughly that he was ready to continue their journey. Crossing the plain, the girl and her father passed a herd of gazelles feeding. They lifted their heads, wondering who was out so early, and when they caught sight of the Kane, they sang, "Why do you give the ogre your child, so fair, so fair?" "You had better ask her," replied the man. "She is old enough to answer for herself." Then, in her turn, the Kane sang, "I gave Koumongoe to Kouane, Koumongoe to the keeper of the beasts. For without Koumongoe they would not go to the meadow. Without Koumongoe they would starve in their huts. That is why I gave him the Koumongoe of my father." And the gazelles all cried, "Wretched man, it is you whom the ogre should eat, and not your beautiful daughter." At last they arrived at the village where the ogre lived, and they went straight to his hut. He was nowhere to be seen, but in his place was his son, Masilo, who was not an ogre at all, but a very polite young man. He ordered his servants to bring a pile of skins for Thakane to sit on, but told her father he must sit on the ground. Then, catching sight of the girl's face, which she had kept down, he was struck by its beauty, and put the same question that the rabbit, the ellens, and the gazelles had done. Thakane answered him as before, but he instantly commanded that she should be taken to the hut of his mother and placed under her care, while the man should be led to his father. Directly the ogre saw him, he bade the servant throw him in a great pot which always stood ready on the fire, and in 5 minutes he was done to a turn. After that the servant returned to Masilo and related all that had happened. Now Masilo had fallen in love with Akane the moment he saw her. At first he did not know what to make of this strange feeling, for all his life he had hated women, and had refused several brides whom his parents had chosen for him. However, they were so anxious that he should marry that they willingly accepted Akane as their daughter-in-law, though she did bring in a marriage portion with her. After some time, a baby was born, and Takane thought it was the most beautiful baby that was ever seen. But when her mother-in-law saw it was a girl, she wrung her hands and wept miserably, saying, "Oh, miserable mother, miserable child! Alas for you! Why were you not a boy?" Takane, in great surprise, asked the meaning of her distress, and the old woman told her that it was custom in the country that all girls who were born should be given to the ogre to eat. But Takane clasped her baby tightly in her arms and cried, "But it is not the custom in my country. There the children die, they are buried in the earth. No one shall take my baby from me." That night, when everyone was in the hut was asleep, Takane rose, and carrying her baby on her back, went down to a place where the river spread itself out into a large lake, with tall willows all around the bank. Here, hidden from everyone, she sat down on a stone and began to think what she should do to save her child. Suddenly she heard a rustling among the willows, and an old woman appeared before her. "What are you crying for, my dear?" she said. And Takane answered, "I was crying for my baby. I cannot hide her forever, and if the ogre sees her, he will eat her, and I would rather she was drowned than that." "What you say is true," replied the old woman. "Give me your child, and let me take care of it. And if you will fix a day to meet me here, I will bring the baby." Then Takane dried her eyes and gladly accepted the old woman's offer. When she got home, she told her husband she had thrown it in the river and had watched it go down the direction, never thought of doubting what she said. On the appointed day, Takane stepped out when everybody was busy and ran down the path that led to the lake. As soon as she got there, she crouched among the willows and sang softly, "Bring to me Dilla, Dilla the rejected one, Dilla whom her father Masilo cast out." And in a moment the old woman appeared, holding the baby in her arms. Dilla had become so big and strong that Takane's heart was filled with gratitude, and she stayed as long as she dared, playing with her baby. At last she felt she must return to the village, lest she should be missed, and the child was handed back to the old woman, who vanished with her into the lake. Children grow up rather quickly underneath when they live underwater, and in less time than anyone supposed, Dyla had changed from a baby to a woman. Her mother came to visit her whenever she was able, and one day, when they were sitting talking together, they were spied out by a man who had come to cut willows to weave into baskets. He was so surprised to see how the face of the girl was to Masilo that he left his work and returned to the village. "Masilo," said he when he entered the hut, "I've beheld your wife near the river with a girl who must be your daughter. She is so like you. We have been deceived, for we all thought she was dead." When he heard this, Masilo tried to look shocked because his wife had broken the law, but in his heart he was very glad. "But what shall we do now?" he asked. "Make sure for yourself that I'm speaking the truth by hiding among the bushes the first time that the Kane says she's going to bathe in the river, and waiting till the girl appears." For some days, the Kane stayed quietly at home, and her husband began to think a man had been mistaken. But at last she said to her husband, "I'm going to bathe in the river." "Well, you can go," answered he, but he ran quickly down by another path, and got there first, and hid himself among the bushes. An instant later, the Kane arrived, and standing on the bank, she sang, "Bring to me Dilla, Dilla the rejected one, Dilla whom her father Masilo cast out." Then the old woman came out of the water, holding the girl, now tall and slender, by the hand. And as Masilo looked, he saw that she was indeed his daughter, and he wept for joy that she was not lying dead in the bottom of the lake. The old woman, however, seemed uneasy, and said to the Kane, "I feel as if someone was watching us. I will not leave the girl today, but will take her back with me." And sinking beneath the surface, she drew the girl after her, After they were gone, Takane returned to the village, which Marcello had managed to reach before her. All the rest of the day he sat in the corner weeping, and his mother, who came in, asked, "Well, why are you weeping so bitterly, my son?" "My head aches," he answered. "It aches very badly." And his mother passed on and left him alone. In the evening he said to his wife, "I have seen my daughter in the place where you told me you had drowned her, and said she lives at the bottom of the lake, and has now grown into a young woman." "I don't know what you're talking about," replied Takane. "I have buried my child under the sand on the beach." Then Masalo implored her to give the child back to him, but she would not listen and only answered, "If I were to give her back to you, you would only obey the laws of your country and take her to your father, the ogre, and she would be eaten." But Masalo promised that he would never let his father see her, and now that she was a woman, no one would try to hurt her. So Takane's heart melted, and she went down to the lake to consult the old woman. "What am I to do?" she asked, when, after clasping her hands, the old woman appeared before her. "Yesterday Masao beheld Dada, and ever since he has entreated me to give him back his daughter." "If I let her go, he must pay me 1,000 head of cattle in exchange," replied the old woman, and Takane carried her answer back to Masao. "Why, I would gladly give her 2,000, cried he, "for she has saved my daughter." And he bade messengers hasten to all the neighboring village and tell his people to send him at once all of the cattle he possessed. When they were all assembled, he chose 1,000 of the finest bulls and cows, and drove them down to the river, followed by a great crowd, wondering what would happen. But Takane stopped forward from the cattle and saying, "Bring to me Dilla, Dilla the rejected one, Dilla whom her father Marcello cast out." And Dilla came from the waters, holding out her hands to Masao and Takane, and in her place the cattle sank into the lake, and were driven by the old woman to the great city filled with people, which lies at the bottom.